Good morning, class. This is Miss Pat coming at you from my office today. I just wanted to give you a quick overview about perfect competition and getting started with that. This is section 2, section 10, module 57, and the pages that correspond in your textbook are pages 570 to 575. So today we're going to talk about really quickly the different types of market structures and just give a brief overview of those, and then we're going to delve a little more deeply into perfect competition specifically. So back at the beginning of the course, we talked very quickly about the four market structures. They're perfect competition, monopoly, oligopoly, and monopolistic competition. Perfect competition is the one with many firms. The products are identical. A key component with this, I'll talk about a lot today, is that they don't have a controlling market share. They can't influence price. When we think about perfect competition, a lot of the firms that we've been talking about lately have been perfect competition. This would be like your agricultural products and your raw material products. A monopoly is where you have a single firm that they're the only firm or the only business that's able to provide that good or service. They do have controlling market share. They're the only ones that provide the service. And a lot of that has to do with extremely high costs to get into a market. Think about utilities, or they hold patents, or such as with pharmaceutical companies. When we talk about EpiPens and everything that happened with the EpiPen, that would be a good example of a monopoly. They have a patent for this auto injector, so they're the only ones that can provide a similar product. An oligopoly is a market structure where there are a few firms. They do have market power. They do have the ability to control price. And their products could be nearly identical or differentiated. But what's important is that you do have a couple of firms. If you want to buy their products, it's these couple of firms, that's it. They do have that controlling market power. And probably the best example we've talked about in class is the beverage industry. At its heart, Pepsi and Coca-Cola really aren't that different, but they do have that market control. If you want to buy a soft drink, 99% of the time, it's going to be one of those two products or a product of PepsiCo or Coca-Cola Company. And monopolistic competition, this is where you have a lot of firms in the market. They do have limited market power. They do have some influence over the price of their product, but not a lot. And their products are differentiated, which means that their products are different. However, a lot of times how they're different deals a lot with advertising. The best example I can think of with monopolistic competition is the fast food industry. Think about Chick-fil-A, Popeyes, KFC. There's a lot of like chicken places out there. Same thing with the hamburger places like Dairy Queen, McDonald's, Culver's, Wendy's. They all have relatively similar products, but they are differentiated in some ways. So that's how they hook their buyers. They also engage heavily in advertising to get you to choose their products over their competitors. So as you're probably getting an idea, the two dimensions on which market structures are based, the things that we're looking at are how many firms are in the market. Are there lots of firms in the market, or are there just one or two? The other thing you need to look at is whether the goods are or the services are identical or differentiated. If the goods are identical and there's a lot of firms in the market, chances are you're looking at perfect competition. If there's a lot of firms in the market, but the products are somewhat differentiated, you're looking at monopolistic competition. So in economics, what do we mean by the term differentiated? And also, what are some examples of differentiated goods? So differentiated means a product that is uniquely different or distinct from other products. And it's this way a lot of times through things like brand loyalty, advertising, they give something unique. If you think about like McDonald's and Wendy's, Culver's, they all have slightly different tricks and advertising and things that they use to get you in their doors. So for example, Wendy's offers more healthy options, McDonald's really caters to children, Hardee's is going to fill that appetite, and Culver's has frozen yogurt or frozen custard. Again, differentiated, we talk about like brand loyalty, PepsiCo versus Coca-Cola, they have differentiated products. They're very similar, but again, they have that brand loyalty. Your economics textbooks in general, and again, fast food restaurants. So in perfect competition, one of the things that's very important to understand is that these firms are price takers. They have no ability to influence price. They don't need to advertise. They don't need to try to get you to buy their product over someone else. For the most part, the products are identical and they take whatever the market price is set by the industry. So a price-taking firm is a firm whose actions have no effect on the market price of the good or service it sells. They cannot set the price. They have no influence over price whatsoever. Price is set by the market supply and demand graph. So whenever you see perfect competition, a lot of times you'll see two markets or two graphs. You'll see the industry graph, which is the supply and demand graph we're used to doing. And then you'll see the firm graph, which is the one that has all the cost curves on it that we did last week. Again, those examples, agricultural products, raw material products, things that are used to make other things. Timber, particularly things like pine that are used for lots and lots of different things. Crude oil, coffee beans, wheat, corn, things like that. The average person's not going to know the difference between one bushel of wheat and the next, or one bushel of coffee beans in the next, or one pine 2x4 in the next. So what is meant by a price-taking consumer? So in the perfectly competitive market, not only are firms price takers, they have to take whatever price is set by the market, but so do consumers. So a price-taking consumer is one whose actions have no effect on the market price of their good or service he or she buys. So you may not want to pay that much, but if you want to get that product, you're going to have to pay it. So again, what is the perfectly competitive market? It's a market in which both firms and consumers are price takers. There are many firms, none of which have a controlling market share, and then their products are all nearly identical. The key assumption that this whole model is based on is the fact that no individual buyer or seller has the power to influence price. So it's all set by the market. An individual firm or an individual buyer really doesn't have a whole lot of input into that. It's the market as a collective. So again, just refreshing that a perfectly competitive industry is an industry in which all firms are price takers. No firm has enough market share to influence price. And we've gone over a lot of examples. I'm not going over those again. So what are the necessary conditions for a perfect competition? Many, many firms. No single firm has a large market share. And all products are relatively equivalent, which means consumers view them as identical. So, and you think about strawberries, whether they're Discovery's or some other firm, you don't really know if strawberry is a strawberry is a strawberry for the most consumers. We'll look at the packaging to see, okay, these strawberries look better than these strawberries. They're less bruised or less damaged or more flavorful looking, but we don't really notice the brand. Most of us aren't brand loyal to strawberries. What is a market share? It's the percentage of the total industry that a single firm produces. Let me rephrase that. The percentage of the total industry output that single producer produces. So no single firm in perfect competitions has that market share. And again, their products are relatively standardized or equivalent. We often refer to these as commodities. And what that means is it's a product in which consumers view as identical, even if produced by different firms. And again, whenever you think about the commodities market, a lot of times it's those agricultural products and those raw goods. Perfectly competitive markets also have free entry and exit, which means it's easy for firms to start up in the industry, but it's also easy for them to get out. We'll often say there are no high barriers to entry. There are few government regulations. You don't need patents. You don't need a lot of stuff to get started in the industry. But also, if firms aren't making a profit, it's also easy to pull your resources out of the market. So that's the whole free entry and exit. And what we'll see is as firms are making profits, A lot of new businesses start up in that market, and then when firms start losing money, stop making a profit, we'll see businesses get out of that industry. And here is the graph for perfect competition. One of the things I want you to note is that there are two graphs. So the graph we have over here is your industry graph. This is the standard supply and demand graph that we've been working with. Price and quantity is set by the intersection of supply and demand. So our price at equilibrium is what's set by the market. So all of the buyers and sellers interacting set the price. And then we're going to go over to the firm graph. So how you do this is you take the price at equilibrium. So here's where the price is at equilibrium, and you take it all the way over and you create a firm graph. Let me go ahead and tell you on the AP exam, if they ask you to set this up on the FRQ, you do have to draw this little dashed line over from the industry graph to the firm graph, or they deduct points. They're kind of picky that way. So the firm graphs looks like the cost graph that we've been looking at, except I've now added the price and demand curve. So the price for a perfectly competitive firm is horizontal. So what this means is the demand for this product is perfectly elastic, which means if they raise the price, nobody buys their product. If they lower the price, everybody else lowers their price or gets out of the market. So it doesn't do them any good. So for a perfectly competitive market, and this is one making a profit, by the way, price is equal to demand. It's also equal to marginal revenue and average revenue. We sometimes refer to this as Mr. DARP. So MR equals D equals AR equals P. So marginal revenue equals demand equals average revenue equals price. The MC curve is on there just like we've been doing. It's that telltale Nike swoosh. Also interesting to note, marginal cost curve is supply where it's above AVC. So if the part of the marginal cost curve above the AVC curve, that's your supply curve. Your ATC is layered in this as well. And you can tell this firm is making a profit because the price is above where that quantity intersects ATC. Your quantity that this firm is going to produce is where price or demand or marginal revenue intersects marginal cost. Remember, your profit maximizing, loss minimizing point is where MR equals MC. So this line here, which is your price and your MR curve and your demand curve, that intersects MC, and that sets your quantity equilibrium. So a couple things really quickly to take away from this. The price for a firm is set by the industry. So you have to have both graphs to know where that price is. The price is also demand and marginal revenue and average revenue. And for a perfectly competitive firm, it is horizontal because demand is perfectly elastic. The quantity to produce is where MR intersects MC. We've been talking about this. So your profit maximizing, loss minimizing output rule still applies. MR equals MC. And then MC above AVC is your supply curve. So, and we're going to get more into this tomorrow, but this gives you a really quick overview. Thank you. I hope you have a great Monday and take care.